The day started quietly on Shen Yu's filming set. The sun had barely risen, most staff were still setting up equipment, and no one expected anything unusual to happen. Shen Yue herself had arrived early, sipping her warm drink, stretching her shoulders, and preparing for another long day of emotionally heavy scenes. She had no idea that something, or rather someone, was already on the way, someone whose presence would send the entire internet into a frenzy. Just past 7 a.m., a black van slowly approached the isolated road leading to the set. At first, no one paid attention. Actors often received deliveries, managers came and went, and vans were nothing new. But the staff member who caught the plate number squinted, gasped softly, and nudged the assistant director beside her. It was a familiar van. One that didn't belong anywhere near this production. One that only a certain actor used when he wanted to avoid attention. Before anyone could react, the back door of the van clicked open, and Dylan Wang stepped out. He didn't have security with him. He didn't have assistants. He didn't have stylists hovering around him. He looked like he had slipped away quietly, intentionally, like he didn't want anyone to know he was coming. He wore a simple hoodie, a cap pulled low, and a mask covering most of his face. But even with all that, the staff recognized him immediately. After all, Dylan Wang had a presence that was impossible to hide. The first reaction wasn't surprise. It was confusion. Why was Dylan here? He wasn't part of the cast. He wasn't part of the production. He had no scheduled work anywhere near this location. And yet here he was, walking straight toward Shen Yu's filming tent with the strangest mix of nervousness and determination in his steps. One staff member whispered, "Is he visiting someone?" Another replied, "There's only one person he would visit." And they were right. Shen Yue was reviewing her script when she heard footsteps behind her. She didn't look up at first. Her mind was still half in character, rehearsing lines in her head. But something about the silence made her raise her eyes. She froze. Dylan stood there, mask still on, hands shoved into his pockets like he didn't know what to do with them, eyes locked on hers. For a moment neither of them said a word. It was the kind of silence that held years of shared memories, drama shoots, behind-the-scenes laughter, rumors they never addressed, chemistry that sometimes felt too real to be scripted, and a bond that neither of them had ever fully explained. Shen Yue finally blinked. Her voice came out softer than usual. "What are you doing here?" Dylan exhaled like he had been holding that breath since he stepped out of the van. "I needed to see you." Shen Yue felt her heart stutter. The staff nearby pretended not to watch, but every eye and ear was focused on them. You could feel the tension, the unspoken familiarity, the lingering connection that fans had always suspected but never quite proven. Shen Yue tried to steady her voice. "You can't just walk in like this. People will talk." Dylan shrugged slightly. "They always talk." This time Shen Yu's lips curled, almost involuntarily. He wasn't wrong. The two of them had been linked for years, through dramas, events, interviews, even accidental encounters. But never had Dylan shown up on her set unannounced. Never had he traveled this far without a reason. Shen Yue finally stood up from her chair. "What happened? Did something go wrong?" Dylan hesitated, and that hesitation spoke louder than anything he could have said. He looked down briefly, then back at her. "I watched your scene yesterday," he said quietly. "You looked exhausted." Shen Yue blinked again. That scene hadn't even aired. That meant Dylan went out of his way to access internal footage. He had to ask someone. He had to be paying attention. Her voice softened. "You came here because I looked tired?" "No," he said. "I came because you looked like you needed someone." Shen Yu's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple, honest, and it hit harder than any scripted line she had ever spoken. She didn't respond immediately. Dylan stepped closer. Too close. Close enough that Shen Yue instinctively took half a step back, her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. Close enough that any paparazzi would have screamed confirmed. "Dylan," she whispered, "if someone takes a photo." He shook his head. "Let them." Shen Yu's eyes widened. She had never seen Dylan like this, bold, straightforward, almost fearless. He seemed like someone who had made a decision long before he arrived here. Her voice trembled. "Why, really? Why did you come?" Dylan looked at her for a long moment, then finally said the words he'd clearly been holding in. Because every time something happens in my life, good or bad, you're the first person I want to talk to. Shen Yue didn't answer. She couldn't. Behind them, several staff members silently mouthed, "Oh my God." One assistant clutched her chest dramatically. Someone else already texted their group chat. And this was only the beginning. When the first photo leaked online, Dylan standing inches from Shen Yue, staring at her like she was the only person on Earth, the internet erupted. Fans went wild. Rumors exploded. Headlines spread everywhere within minutes. But Dylan didn't care. He was already inside the tent with her, lowering his mask, revealing the sincerity in his expression as he whispered something only Shen Yue could hear. And that moment was what changed everything. Dylan didn't move at first. He simply stood there behind the monitor, eyes fixed on the scene unfolding just meters away. Shen Yue had no idea he was watching, absolutely none, and that made it even worse for him, or maybe better. Because this wasn't jealousy he could hide behind humor or excuses. This was the kind that hits the chest like a sudden drop in altitude. The director called for another take. The male lead moved closer to Shen Yue, lifting a hand to brush a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture written in the script, but Dylan's jaw tightened anyway. It was barely noticeable to anyone else, but for him, it was everything. A staff member approached Dylan carefully, whispering, You're not supposed to be here until tomorrow's shoot." Dylan didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on Shen Yue, watching her laugh lightly as the scene reset, the same way she always laughed when she messed something up. That laugh, he knew it too well. Too well to pretend he didn't care. Finally, the director shouted, "Cut. Good. Let's take 5. Shen Yue turned, stretching her arms, and her eyes landed on Dylan. Her body froze. She blinked once, twice, then her face lit up the way it only did for people she genuinely cared about. "Dylan, what are you doing here?" Every staff member felt the shift in the air instantly, the tension, the shock, the electricity between them. Even the male lead stepped back subtly, sensing it wasn't his moment anymore. Dylan tried to play it cool, shoving his hands into his pockets. "I was in the area. Thought I'd drop by." It was the worst lie he had ever told. Shen Yue squinted at him, the same look she gave him on dramas when she knew he wasn't being honest. "Dylan Wang." Her voice dropped, soft but firm. "You came because of the scene, didn't you?" He looked away, but the silence was the answer. She took a step closer. "You're jealous." He snapped back quickly, louder than he meant to. "I'm not." But she was already smiling, that teasing smile she used to throw at him during Meteor Garden whenever he got flustered. "Dylan," she said again, softer this time, "you didn't have to come." He swallowed hard, then finally said what he'd been holding back. "I didn't want to hear you laugh like that with someone else." Shen Yu's breath caught. Everyone around them pretended to be busy, but all ears were tuned in. She stepped closer, arms folded gently. "You know it's acting, right?" "That's the problem," he answered quietly. "You're too good at it." For a moment, they just looked at each other, that familiar look that always made people wonder why they never ended up together, on screen or off. Then Shen Yue softened, reaching up to tap his chest lightly. "You're still the same. Still jealous. Still dramatic." He almost smiled, but the emotion in his eyes stayed real. "And you're still you," he replied. "The one who gets under my skin without trying." Before she could respond, the director suddenly yelled, "Shen Yue, back on set." She hesitated for a second, then looked back at Dylan with something unspoken, something that said, "Wait for me." He nodded. As she returned to the set, Dylan stayed exactly where he was, watching, but now he wasn't jealous. He understood why he came. He missed her, and this time he wasn't planning to leave quietly.